I need to be aware of the natural psychology of the employment. The natural psychology of employment that it gives you monthly payment,
Payment,
and
yes.
for which you have to give them service for a month,
Yeah.
and that is what is your fixed salary. Now, tomorrow, if you see one of your colleagues just gets 2 crore rupees with a strike of with a stroke of signature, then your natural psychology should not be affected by it, because the time when you were taking the decision of choosing this job in employment, you must be consciously aware of the impact or the consequences of this particular job and the nature. And the nature of the employment was that you will be given salary on
Yeah.
month.
Suppose you see a particular object being stolen by somebody, and
Right.
that point of time, you don't feel any kind of sadness because that object doesn't belong to you.
We all are trying to create a separate identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, how you can present yourself more differently, as you can be sticking out of the line. And for this, you have to do certain things which is not expected to be done by some other people in the same community. And only then you will be called as a successful people. Remember, when the natural psychology is affected through the dominance of other psychology, as I told you, that every particular object has its own psychology. So we need to understand it all the time in this way. So when we allow other psychology to afflict on us in this way, then we are going to be affected. And
The moment we are born, we are always in the fear of losing our life. So we cannot
Right.
actually make it here permanent, impossible.
Right.
So why living in fear, right? So we should be realizing the fact that we are here to bliss, to be in bliss, right? To be in a blissful state.
Now, when the psychology of a particular word or a particular event tries to overpower our psychology, then what it happens thereafter, our natural psychology gets deviated, drifted away, and
Yeah.
thereafter we start feeling sorrow. For
Yeah.
example, you might have seen many people who get perturbed on just a slight provocation.
Yeah.
A just simple insulting word or phrase can give them a dose of perturbation for more than a month.
Yes, Robin, welcome to this show. And this podcast episode is based on the insights we got from the book Everything is Psychology. The whole conversation is going to revolve around the same. And this is one of the masterpieces I've ever read so far in my whole life. And the kind of gems of wisdom I found there. This is beyond description because it is all about helping people leading the phenomenal life they deserve to live, right? Generally what happens, we don't actually have the right idea as we are highly influenced and conditioned by the surroundings. And so this particular conversation is going to break that cycle, and it will help us come back on the no, on the track so that we can start living the kind of life we have always deserved, right? So before I start asking you a few questions based on what we found there, I want to say a little about it so that people will also be getting to know in a better way.
Okay, good evening to you and good evening to everyone. So, this is going to be our first book review.
Yeah.
So, we haven't done any book review so far, and we will try to make it more interesting. And we commit for one thing, that after you complete this session, there'll be a change in your life. If you can understand those subtle concepts given in this book, then I'm sure that you will be able to change your life significantly. You will feel yourself more transformed, not now, but in the days to come, because this video is all about telling all those insight and the depth of the book. And the book name is Everything is Psychology,
Yeah.
written by Deep Trivedi.
Yes.
Now, before we go ahead, let me give you just a little bit introduction about the book, so that thereafter we could have a talk on those important questions, which would give a complete, summarize a summary of the entire book. So, introduction of the book would be as that first, everything is psychology. So, everything is going to be revolving around psychology. This is to
Yeah.
be clear to all. Now, since we are talking about psychology, so we have to separate physicalities from psychology because both are two different aspects. So we need to be very careful about it because sometimes this causes a lot of misconceptions, and which I want the audience to be a little bit careful, especially while listening to this video. Second important thing, whatever we're going to discuss about the book, I recommend with all my urge that everything must be understood and conceived in the light of nature,
Yeah.
because psychology is the one at the center theme, and I want all people to understand it in the context of nature or in the light of nature. Because if you try to understand it from the social norms, from the rules that we follow in the society, then I think it's all going to be messed up. You are not going to get anything. Third important thing in this particular about this particular book, which I want to give in the introduction, is that it deals mostly about a combination of psychologies. We will try to
Mm.
know what combination of psychology, but let me just give you a little bit brief. It is all about changes of psychology
Yeah.
and how it affects your mental health, which is also be, I think, discovered in the later part to come, right?
Yeah.
So all these things which we'll try to cover in a more simple version. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Yes. So wait a while. So first of all, what we need to know is what psychology is. People know the definition, but it is beyond. It goes beyond definition because whatever we are talking about is very different from what people know. What we are talking about is that everything has its own nature. We can say it is its psychology. For example, if we talk about water, if we talk about moon, if we talk about sun,
Hmm,
every object has its
hmm,
own psychology, and we must understand that, right?
hmm.
So the first question which I'm going to ask you is, tell me, what is psychology of everything, and how does a common person should understand natural psychology?
Okay. Let me divide this question in two parts, and I'll try to respond it in the same way.
Yeah.
So first, try to understand nature of psychology,
Yes.
natural psychology, right? And then I think a common understanding will then be explained, right? How a
Yeah.
common person could understand this.
Yeah.
Natural psychology is described in the book in such a way where the writer uh, puts more emphasis on making people believing into a particular thing, that every particular object in the world that exists has its own particular psychology.
Yeah.
So it is not just limited to object, even an abstract thing has its own psychology.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It includes also this these sequence of words or these new forming words whatsoever coming into the limelight people are using these days during their conversation. Every single word, every single event or occurrence in whatsoever form has its own natural psychology. Now this might cause a little bit panic to viewers because we are talking about psychology, and that too we are talking in the context of objects, because object is inanimate,
Yeah.
obviously. So how does an inanimate particle or an object could have this psychology? So this is what we have to understand first of all. So when we talk about psychology of everything, as I told you, it also deals with psychology of everything. Means it includes words. So for example, insult is itself a word, right?
Mm.
So, what could be the natural psychology of this word is that when someone perceives, insult, right, from any person through
Yeah.
words, through conduct, then its psychology is that it is going to hurt the person who receives it, right?
Yeah.
It is going to injure, self-esteem of a particular person. So this is its natural psychology, right? So it has to be like this. So it has no change in it. So, for example, insult will remain an insult forever,
Yeah.
right? For example, you took an example of water. So the natural psychology of water is
To
flow.
flow.
I mean, ceaseless flow. So
Mm.
you put it anywhere into any particular stream, the water continues to flow. Now,
Yeah.
this is something else. When you put it in some container, then obviously it won't be allowed to flow in that way. But as long as it is, especially an open river or a
Yeah.
pond, then it is going to be sustaining its natural psychology, right? So this is I mean, let me make it very clear, because since I have used the word container, so here the psychology of water is a little bit changing, right? Because then it's not flowing, right? So we need to understand that psychologies are of different nature. It could be convertible psychology, it could be
Yeah.
combination psychology, it could be, so we are talking right on the natural psychology.
Natural
Now,
psychology.
this is what is natural psychology. Now, when we talk about natural psychology, we need to understand that we are talking about humans' natural psychology, because the center, because we humans are at the center, right?
Yeah.
Because the book is written for the purpose to give a healing process
Yeah.
to human psychology, because these days we humans, as a part of the society, feeling disappointed and dejected, and therefore we need to have a certain tool or instrument, so that we could really manage the psychology and get back to a natural psychology,
Yeah.
right? So this is what we have to be very clear about. Now, natural psychology of human is peace, content, and bliss. This is what has been written in the book.
And freedom as well.
So yes, it is a natural psychology
Yeah.
of humans. So remember, the book signifies this in a bold letter, that every person living on this planet has its natural psychology, much similar to the psychology of water, or the insult, the word we use. And its natural psychology, the human's natural psychology, is to peace. I mean, this peace, I mean, we all are meant to be in a peaceful state of mind,
Yeah.
blissful state of mind, or we are always content, right? So this is an now, if it is this is the basically question comes right from the writer, that if this is a natural psychology of human, then why we are so perturbed and easily get indignated on trivial issues, right? So this is what a particular purpose for which the book has been written, and it is just because of we have lost the track of this natural psychology. We have been digressed from this natural psychology, or you can say we have been drifted away from the natural psychology. So there are ways out which we have to understand first and get our psychology back, or reinstate the psychology into this natural psychology, right?
Hmm.
So this is what is natural psychology. Now,
Yeah.
one must understand that when the writer basically in the book deals with natural psychology, he is basically indicating that our natural psychology is prone to disturbance,
Yeah.
right? Is prone to get deviated, because this is what it is. We cannot do any change in that, right? So our psychology is open to surroundings, right? And our psychology has its two important I mean, components, whatsoever you can say. So we basically we have brain or mind, right? So
Yeah.
brain is an external operation machine. That's what you can say in technical form, which deals with things that exist outside.
I would say, yeah.
Okay, so you can say this brain basically is what that helps you accumulate knowledge from your surroundings.
Hmm.
Okay, it is just kind of a cable, right, which we use in this device to transfer data, right? So this brain is much like a cable, and that helps you to collect and gather a lot of data around. So when you interact with many events, or come across different kind of incidents, or interact with many people, then all these in the form of data are well collected and gathered in your brain, right? In
Then, yeah.
mind, basically. So it processes right from the brain and gets back into the mind. So
Mhm.
here, brain is what that is your external mechanism or external operational tool, and mind is internal operational tool. So these are two things, right? Psychology usually get disturbed just because of our mind gets indulged into all that what is perceived by the brain.
Hmm.
Now let me give you just a small or a very simple explanation of this for the viewers to understand that our brain is basically what is your external operational machine,
Yeah.
right? So it helps you collect data. Now our mind is what that shows emotive part, means emotions generates right from your mind.
Yeah.
So for example, when we uh, uh, encounter with a certain gruesome or a ghastly event such as an accident on the road,
Hmm. Hmm.
so this particular data in the form of data gets accumulated through the brain, and as long as it is received by the mind starts showing emotion, right? So that's how the mind gets connected with the brain, right? And thereafter we start feeling uneasiness, and those expression of anxiety and or hyper, it starts I mean surfacing on our face, on our body. So the main thing which we need to understand, which we'll discuss especially in the later part, is that we have to learn to separate mind from brain. Both are
Yeah.
different. If you can engage yourself with the external world, but at the same time commit yourself not to be indulging everything into whatever you're doing, you can separate your mind with your brain, and that's how you can remain you can ensure this intact natural psychology of your being, right? So this is
Mhm.
about your natural psychology, and natural psychology of every object. Over to
Yeah.
you.
Uh, as you said that the word, you talked about the word insult. So whenever somebody uses, this word, they feel the kind of their emotions are getting hurt. They are feeling, their self-esteem is getting injured. So it simply says that every word and everything has its own emotions, right? And that's why it has its own psychology. For example, whenever you say that you use the word love, so it has its own nature, it has
Right.
its own psychology, and it gives some kind of good feeling to people. And
Right.
this is the proof and solid proof that yes, every word has their own psychology, right?
Right.
There are certain things which gives us happiness, and there are certain things which gives us, you know you can say, sadness and all.
Right.
So you will tell me the next thing, which is very much important for people to know, and this is that how a desire of being successful disturbs natural psychology. Everybody is now the part of this rat race, and they have set some very high goals for themselves, very tall, they are making tall claims to themselves, thinking that they are going to be there, and they're going to achieve huge success. So, and this sometimes, what happens, this disturbs their this mental composure, their mental peace, right? So you will tell me that how a desire of being successful disturbs our natural psychology.
Okay, so let me start by this part, saying one very centered part of my discussion is that whatsoever we are going to discuss about the book needs to be understood in the light of nature.
Nature,
So
yes.
again, this nature has to be intact, especially in the mind of viewers, so that things could be more clearer, right? Now, responding to your question, I would love to give you a counter question to the audience, and then we'll try to have a response of this question. Now, we are talking about being successful because everyone today, right now, is in the race of being successful, right? They
Yeah.
are doing their level best to that. Now, my question to the audience is that uh, is this success uh, only a reason to get ourselves anchored into this peaceful state of mind, into this blissful state of mind, which we call the natural psychology? And if it is, then why people? Because if you go and have a complete picture of the data right now, the society across the globe, then you will possibly find and will be awestruck at the same time that millions and millions of people have gained success, but less than 1% or even lesser than this are still happy and peace, right? So
Yes.
one thing is clear is that your success is never a recurse to give you this happy or a peaceful state of mind. That is what has to be clear to all, right? Now, since we have understood that the success which we are trying to uh, experience, especially according to this socially laid down rules, because according to social conditions, according to socially social norms, what actually success is that one who is wealthy, one who has big or big position in a society, one who has a power to regulate natural sources, to discharge natural resources, right? Or one who has a power to enjoy a lot of things, right? So this is what how success is defined. But remember, and if you can throw your observation on this part, whatsoever we are trying to understand, we are understanding in the light of social norms, not nature. So
Yeah.
how we are defining success here is not through the nature, but the social norms. Because if we try to understand success from the nature point of view, then by birth, we are successful.
Yeah.
Why? Because peace, bliss, and contentment has no essential derivatives such as confidence, success, which means for being happy, you are not required to be wealthy.
Yeah.
For being happy, you are not required to be holding good position in a society. For being cherished, you are not required to be having certain things which is being enjoyed by other section of the people. This is really important. But though it's very subtle, but many people don't really understand that particular part, right? So one thing is clear here is that the success we are looking for is actually having a diametrically opposite meaning to the success which we have to understand through the nature point of view, right? So this is the first part. Second part, how success makes people even more unsuccessful in terms of being uh, not having a life, a full of life, or living a life in such a doldrum as someone is having a lifeless kind of thing, right? So, what makes these people feel so if they even try to acquire success? See, if you try to relate this very process of how one person becomes successful, especially in this current society, then you will find is something very ironical. And what is ironical here is that we all are trying to create a separate identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, how you can present yourself more differently as you can be sticking out of the line. And for this, you have to do certain things which is not expected to be done by some other people in the same community. And only then you will be called as a successful people.
Mm.
So what we are actually doing here is that we are trying to create a very self or a very separate identity, which means you are trying to put yourself separately just out of the community in some or other way, right? Now, in other words, you can say that you are being disunioned or disassociated with the entire community. Now,
Yes.
compare it to the nature at the same time. What nature teaches us? Nature teaches us to form union with everyone. For example, if you look around people around, right? And specifically all natural objectives or everything that is surrounded, you will find all are living in some communion state of mind, which means they are very much cooperating at the same time and they are forming a certain inalienable union, right?
Mm.
Whatsoever without doing any partiality. This is the power of the nature, and this is the true nature of all these natural objects. So
Yeah.
therefore, this success, this very particular success that we're trying to enjoy and and wants ourselves to be, then I think this is really dangerous for the society as well as for you because you it takes you away from this natural psychology. Second point, which is really important, is that for this we need to give certain evidences because sometimes things could not be clearer to people. For example, if you ask, for example, now we don't have Edison, right, alive with us.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose if you had asked or had you asked ever to this Edison about whether he wanted to be successful in his life through this very invention of bulb, then his answer would probably be that he never wanted to be successful because one who has been successful right now in the society, you name and I'll tell you, all these people have never tried to be successful in their life. Whatever they did it out of the inspiration of nature. For
Mm.
example, Lord Krishna, if you had asked Lord Krishna once, then whether he just recited all those 720 or 80 slokas of Bhagavad Gita just out of this very passion that one day he would be recalled as a Lord Krishna for his this very magnanimous work that he enlightened all people, then the answer of this Lord Krishna would be that he never ever wanted
Yeah.
to be successful in this because whatsoever happened out of a natural act. This is called a natural act, by the way.
Yes.
So whenever you do things using more than needed conscious and having a particular kind of objective, carrying particular objective in your mind, then it certainly hits very hard, and it somewhere disbalances your entire natural psychology, landing you onto this very mode of, you can say, misery. One
Hmm.
thing which is very important to note here is that there are two particular events, or you can say two particular occurrences. One that is happening, and the second is doing. So all these things which are under happening mode is basically referred to be a part or the essential component of uh, natural psychology. For this, we are not going to exert any particular force to make it happen. For example, we have this body. There are
Hmm.
many particular events and biological process happening on its own, for which we are not exerting any sort of force. So
Yes.
these all are happening. These are all in happening mode. For example, blinking our eyes and this consistently taking.
Your hand moving, you're not even
Yes,
aware of it.
yes, you're not aware of it. Moreover, you are not feeling fatigued and exhausted, right?
Yes.
I mean, do we ever feel exhausted? I mean, blinking this eyes, or I mean, breathing in or breathing out. This is natural psychology, or sorry, this is what is in happening mode.
Yeah.
I mean, sun is continuously radiating heat for millions of years, and it will continue to do that for another millions of years, and it is all in happening mode, and still, I mean, it is not getting exhausted, right? So
Yeah.
we need to understand that any particular event that takes a lot of energy from you and puts you in this very state of exhaustion and fatigueness, then it maybe for many people success, but internally it is not success for you, because it lands up you on a particular situation where you feel uneasy, incomplete, and obviously disturbed mentally, psychologically, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we have to understand, especially when we try to understand the psychology from the social point of view. Therefore, I suggest people to understand success from the nature point of view, and then you will have a clear definition of success, and then you will find that even if you have nothing in your hand, right, you will remain very peaceful, very silent, and very blissful all the time.
So you want to say that when somebody starts overdoing things, they actually deviate from their natural psychology, right?
Right,
And instead of being successful, they become successful. Am I right?
right,
And this is what we should try to understand, and we should always be trying to going back to our natural psychology so that we can make the most of this life and we can live our life to the fullest. Because this is
right.
ultimately this is the goal of this particular life, that we got this birth, and it is meant to be lived to the fullest, right? The next thing which you have to tell me is that what you call sorrow is a change of psychology. What do you think about it? What we call actually sorrow is a change of psychology. What do you think about it?
This is one of the most biggest problem among people, is that for them sorrow is nothing but uh, a bad experience, and obviously it's a bad experience, but it is a complete failure on the human part that they haven't understood it, right? The very depth part of it, and especially the point from where it is channelized, or from where it is originated, because once we know the origination of this sorrow, it is very likely that we can to a largest extent reduce this intensity of sorrow. I
Hmm.
don't say that the sorrow and the suffering could be completely exterminated. It's not possible, but to a larger extent, it could be, because many people have done that. So we cannot say that it is impossible. Those people whom we know have really done remarkably good in this particular field, reducing their sorrow. One of those famous name is Gautam Buddha himself. He obviously uh, won over this suffering, and throughout his life, he was called an enlightened personality. Lord Krishna was also.
Yeah.
Socrates can also be included in the list, and Lord Krishna. There are several number of people. Jesus Christ. These are the names whom we know, but there are millions and millions of names whom we really don't know, just because of things have been more politicized. So these names are not easily, highlighted, right? Because no one wants to believe and know those things which are really important and hold much value for the society,
Hmm.
right? So when we talk about sorrow, we need to understand its origination. Sorrow, basically, in simple term, we can say it is a change of psychology. Why it is a change of psychology? As I told you right in the beginning of this part, that our natural psychology is peace and bliss, right? So when it turns out to be something different, then what could it else be? It is definitely a sorrow, right? So therefore, change of psychology means you feel this sorrow and suffering. Now, the second thing which is important, how does it happen? So the second word which I want you to know is that it is called combination of psychology. Remember, we are talking much about the psychology. We also need to know how the psychology is disturbed, right? We know that we are open to our surroundings. We are open to all people. Now, it is not possible that we carry this psychology and not let it be affected. It is impossible. It is
Yeah,
going to be affected, but it is on to you how you want to manage it, how you want to reduce the intensity of that effect, right? So, when does it happen? That is what we have to know first of all. So, I told you what is that is called combination of psychology.
yeah,
And how does it happen when we are carrying our own psychology and when the psychology gets overpowered by the psychology of other,
yeah.
then this very feeling of suffering or the sorrow comes into existence. For example, we have the natural psychology. We all know what the natural psychology of human. Now, we also talked about that every particular object, event, and occurrence has its own natural psychology. Now, when the psychology of a particular word or a particular event tries to overpower our psychology, then what it happens thereafter, our natural psychology gets deviated, drifted away, and
Yeah,
thereafter we start feeling
mm,
sorrow. For
yeah,
example, you might have seen many people who get perturbed on just a slight provocation.
yeah.
A just simple insulting word or phrase can give them a dose of perturbation for more than a month. That's kind of sensitive people these people are. And at the same time, you might have seen many people who really don't take these insulting words as such that it doesn't affect them at all. Why it is so? We need to understand it. Because on the one hand, there is a section of people which is large in number who easily get affected and afflicted by this word insult or any particular behavior of a person. But at the same time, we have also people, though less in number, don't have that much kind of impact and let the psychology be disturbed. Why it is so? It is just because the power of managing one's psychology. So when we talk about this combination of psychology, we simply mean to say is that we always try to let this psychology be intact with this
Mm,
natural psychology without letting the psychology of other object or event or occurrence, right, to affect negatively on us. And in this way, you carry on with this natural psychology. Therefore, many people live their life with all health. Why? Because they know how to deal with the certain conditions. They believe that they have their natural psychology and they know this natural psychology should never be deviated from its path. Even even the psychology of other objective tries to do that. So next time when any one of us meets with a certain event or incident which is very ghastly in nature, then it is up to us whether we want the psychology of that ghastly event to overpower our psychology. If yes, then your cycle is going to be disturbed and you will then start fall in this very despondency state of mind. But
mhm.
if we are so committed and so much, very clear with this process that we don't allow and we will try that psychology of other objects should never ever try to dominate our psychology, then you will feel just with a little practice, then we will be able to tackle all possible miseries or hard time or a challenging phase of life. We know there are many people in this world who really went through their struggling phases of life, but they never got picked up. For example, what makes people become successful just because of their level of managing their psychology to be
Mm,
remaining intact with their natural psychology. For example, when a batsman like Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli enters this ground, which is surrounded by uh, thousands and thousands of audience and spectators.
Mm.
And when the same batsman gets out on zero, then don't you think this particular batsman might have faced a lot of criticism from his surroundings?
Even hooting, even hooting is
Yes,
also there.
sometimes their family members are also targeted.
Yeah.
So it is very likely that the natural psychology is going to be affected.
Hmm.
Remember, when the natural psychology is affected through the dominance of other psychology, as I told you, that every particular object has its own psychology. So we need to understand it all the time in this way. So when we allow other psychology to afflict on us in this way, then we are going to be affected. And remember, when it happens, the first thing it gives you as a consequence is that you goes down in terms of failure, because you then uh, uh, obviously have no choice but to perceive this failure in life. So, in other words, you can say when you become possibly successful only when when you are committed to be intact with this natural psychology. Whatsoever event comes and occurrence in your life, you will remain same, and that is what is the major center part of this book.
Hmm. So one thing before I ask you next question, I want to ask you a cross question actually, because
Hmm.
this will give you
Yeah,
this will give the audience some kind of extra knowledge, right?
right, right.
For example, as you said that once your psychology changes, it leaves you dejected, disappointed, and sad. But what if somebody tells me or somebody teaches me how I can reinstate myself to be in that natural psychology. How can I reinstate myself? Because this is something which I must know so that I can live that blissful kind of state of mind. How can I
Uh,
reinstate myself?
okay, I'll also try to respond this if in the later part of this video, but for the time being, I can simply say one thing. Whenever we talk about psychology, it's important that we should also try to connect it to some part of the scriptures called Bhagavad Gita.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read Bhagavad Gita, specifically the part or specifically the sloka 2.47, means chapter 2, sloka number 47, then there is a clear description in detail which telling you the process how you can be very much statistic and stable with your psychology.
I think there is a
Why?
term called sthit pragya that you don't have to be
Yes, yes,
affected
yes,
by
yes,
the
yes,
things. You have to.
yes, yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. So this particular sloka talks about that if you can continue yourself in working without indulging into work. See, there
Hmm.
is very a very subtle part which this Bhagavad Gita tells is that we need to continue to perform act, but without indulging into the act. For
Hmm.
example, if you work without even thinking for the result, then you may be happy all the time, which means you
Yeah.
remain intact with
Because
this
there is
natural
no
psychology.
emotion, there is no emotion attached with the
Yes,
outcome.
obviously. Second thing, even if you have got this result, then you must not think that this is for you.
Yeah.
So in spiritual term, it is said that then you must, surrender it to the lotus feet of the God. So
Yeah.
whatsoever you earn throughout your action, which you call the result, the fruit, that is not for your pleasure. It is for the pleasure of the God, the superhead God,
Yeah.
right? This is what the spiritual, version of this. You, some people are atheist, undoubtedly, and I don't have any objections about someone being atheist. What I'm saying is that even when you have any work at your hand, and then you want some desirable results out of it. And when you achieve those desirable results, don't even treat with those results as it is only for your pleasure. So when you, if you don't even believe in the God, you can, share the benefit of this particular fruit or the desirable result with the people around you, right? So that's how you can enjoy your success. So in this way, what you are trying to insinuate or indicate that you haven't got attached with any of the things, right? So
Mm.
that's how you can remain intact with your natural psychology, because what is the biggest uh, root cause for this natural psychology to be disturbed is that this very this very habit of attaching oneself with the desirable result, with the fruit of the particular action. And one who has done it successfully, then I think his natural psychology will remain be I mean, unaffected, unflappable. Yep.
Mhm. It is just like, when you want, you suppose, you see a particular object being stolen by somebody. And
Right.
at that point of time, you don't feel any kind of, sadness because that object doesn't belong to you. If we
Right.
can keep ourselves in the same kind of, situation, even when we lose our own things, right?
Right.
I think then we will be able to reinstate ourselves in that psychology where
Right.
we are not going to be affected by anything, because then we'll not be attaching ourselves to the objects, to the people, because ultimately now we know the reality that this is not going to last forever, right? So why to
Right.
attach ourselves so much with that, right? And then
Right.
uh, blissful state is not far away from you. You are gonna
Right.
be
Right.
state, right? The next thing which you'll be telling me is that tell me human is meant to sustain his survival and progress in life. As we already know, we are always trying to progress. We are always trying to make this planet a better place to live, right? So we are always trying to sustain this survival and progress in our life. So tell me, thus the feeling of being unworthy or incompetent is baseless. What do you think about it?
Okay, let me ask you this one simple question, especially the audience.
Hmm.
What is that exact thing which really consumes a lot of energy, resources, and also the peace of our mind? Then the possible answer would be to this question is this feeling of losing existence.
Yeah.
So we humans are always under a certain threat that anytime we might lose our existence.
Yes.
So therefore, we are so much engaged with this accumulation and hoarding of natural resources or the things around us so that it could ensure our longevity. And that is what is causing the biggest, uh, I think, problem to humans' psychology. Because when you are constantly under a threat of losing your life or losing someone's life, whatsoever it is, to whom which you are attached, I think makes you lose your natural psychology at the same time.
Yeah.
We should not be forgetful that the chapter is revolving around to remain intact with the natural psychology.
Hmm.
So this is one of those causes for why people just under a threat of losing life uh, feel so much insecure that their natural psychology is drifted away altogether at the same time. Now, to this, we have a very clear cut response. Deep Trivedi, the writer of the book, says one remarkable thing is that we humans often forget that we are the one who hold immense potential, power. And this is what is, I think, is still not acknowledged by the largest section of the people. And therefore, Deep Trivedi brings the focus of all the people on the nature and its way of interacting with things. Because nature is no different of us, because we are the part of nature at the same time, right? So when we see nature around us and their behavior, their attitude, you will find even a tiny particle is existing and withstanding all sorts of natural calamities and not losing existence at the same time. Though there are certain kind of situations which are overly harsh and unjust. Now, under this, people are tend to lose their natural psychology, as it happens with the natural psychology of many objects. For example, let's take an example of water. So, water has its natural psychology, that is to ceaseless flow.
Hmm.
But what happens when you put it to 100 degree centigrade temperature? It converts into vapor.
Yeah.
So here is natural psychology is converting. But remember, when it is converting, only under a very, very harsh situation
Yes.
or a
When
condition.
you boil
Of,
it,
yes.
especially at this boiling
So
point.
yes, it is not even losing its natural psychology so early. Even when you try to convert that vapor into again solid state, ice. then again you have to put it in 100 minus 100 degrees centigrade.
Yeah.
So it will require 100 degrees centigrade for a particular thing to be uh, facing this conversion from one state to other. So under these, instances or conditions, which we often call very harsh, are actually not a harsh condition, right? Secondly, Deep Trivedi also talks that humans' natural psychology is far different from the natural psychology of object. Why? Because it is one step ahead in terms of its benefit, in terms of its power. Why? Because natural psychology of human is actually freedom, which means we have that freedom to choose whether our natural psychology to be deviated or not.
Hmm.
Remember, we talked one important and a very relevant example few days before about Socrates' death and how he succumbed to that, especially when he wanted to prove that his consciousness is still awakening, even when poison was administered to him. So, when poison was administered to Socrates on the order of the judge, then he remained to be conscious until the 90% of the body was almost mutilated
Yeah.
with an immediate effect of the poison.
Or in the
But
in
until
the grip of poison, right?
Yes, but until he reached to that point of 90%, 90 degree of complete uh, poison effect, he
Hmm.
remained consciousness because he was responding. There he showed the power of this natural psychology. So even when he was given and administered this poison, but still he remained calm consciousness to the point until the effect reached to 90 percentage. Because soon after he became unconscious and finally met his last breath. Understand? So this is what Deep Trivedi also talks, that it is us who have this freedom to choose whether our psychology to be affected or not, even under very harsh circumstances. And that particular freedom is not given, especially to these objects, because no matter what you
It cannot
do
be
and
conscious.
cause, yes, no matter what you do and with this water or whatsoever the natural psychology of water, but it is going to be affected, it is going to be converted once the temperature reaches to 100 degrees centigrade. So
Yeah.
therefore it is a step ahead. That is an extra feature of the human psychology. So
Hmm.
therefore Deep Trivedi simply talks about that we should not be bothering about our existence, because existence is always in full support of the nature, and we are always in cooperation. As the nature continues to survive, always showing unity and impartial nature, the same we have to do, because we are of the nature, right? We are the part of the nature. So that's how beautifully he defined this and tells us that we should not go and consume energy and waste our energy in these futile things to protect ourselves all the time, rather than enjoy the life to the fullest and just leave everything to whatsoever happens.
So fearing losing our existence is just going to be baseless. It is going to be unfounded and unwarranted because it
Right,
has
right,
nothing to do with our living our life to the fullest. Because it is all
right,
about the moment we are born, we are always in the fear of losing our life. So we cannot
right,
actually make it here permanent, impossible.
right.
So why living in fear, right? So we should be realizing the fact that we are here to bliss, to be in bliss, right? To be in a blissful state. And the last question, but not the least, and the question is, tell me the as you know, we make more efforts, right? The more we make efforts to solve our problems, why do they get, why does it get worse as we try to s- work harder and harder to resolve the problems we have in our life? So why it just gets complicated with with every effort we try to make to resolve it?
Okay, so there are few things which people can possibly do and could remain be in this very blissful state of mind. See, we have talked a lot about happening mode and doing mode, but I'm
Mhm.
not going to get you in this talk again. Rather, I would love to, explain on the other part of it. It's all okay to perform our action with our conscious mind. Now, we need to make a little distinction between being conscious and overly conscious,
Hmm.
right? Because when we talk about conscious and then take a decision, in fact, it is almost the need of everyone. If we don't take decisions out of a conscious mind, then we are going to fall, obviously, right? And we might face some repercussion of it. So
Hmm.
conscious decision is always important and is good for your survival, is good for your life. But we need to understand when we talk about this consciousness and make a distinction between overly consciousness, that when we are talking about decisions taken on the basis of consciousness, it is all about to first understand the natural psychology of the object or a particular event which we are going to encounter with, because in that way you are already asserting yourself. For example, I know that I'm going to be insulted, or let's say I have a choice to make whether to adopt this employment based on monthly payment
Salary,
or
yeah.
to start my business.
Hmm.
So if I take a conscious decision, now this what this conscious decision here is that we need to understand that when I say I need to do a job, I need to be aware of the natural psychology of the employment. The natural psychology of employment that it gives you monthly payment,
Payment,
and
yes.
for which you have to give them service for a month,
Yeah.
and that is what is your fixed salary. Now, tomorrow, if you see one of your colleagues just gets 2 crore rupees with a strike of with a stroke of signature, then your natural psychology should not be affected by it. Because the time when you were taking the decision of choosing this job and employment, you must be consciously aware of the impact or the consequences of this particular job and the nature. And the nature of the employment was that you will be given salary on
Yeah.
month.
Yeah. Monthly
So you
paycheck.
should not be, yes, so you should not be getting bothered about it at all. So that's how you can take this conscious decision. Many people try to interpret this conscious decision is that to be always be intact with a certain thought process while performing your action. For example, let's take an example of this communication. We have been holding this communication for last 45 minutes or more, right?
Yeah.
Now, was this conversation successful if we had this conversation, I mean, with a burden of conscious thought process, word after word,
It
sentence after
it would
sentence,
have been worse.
obviously. So, therefore, conscious decision only means that you need to be aware of the consequences of a particular thing, right? Or the natural psychology of, and then you have taken a decision. Once you have taken your decision, and then roll yourself out in the direction and start trading on the path to achieve that, that you don't need to be overly conscious. For example, and this is one of the famous stories, and this is one of my good, I mean, very, I think, favorite stories. I mean, there was a 48 lakh creature, and this creature was famous for his graceful movement. I mean, imagine there is a creature of 48 lakhs and it is moving gracefully
Must
without
be
showing
centipede,
any.
right? Must be
Yeah,
centipede. Centipede.
obviously.
Uh,
Yes. So now it is moving gracefully without showing any disbalance. Now, and it was popular in especially in that particular community, right? So once this creature happened to pass this very elevated saint sitting there and absorbed in penance. And as soon as this creature passed, this saint opened his eyes and just called this creature. This creature came before the saint and bowed its head, as mostly people do out of reverence.
mhm.
I mean, like other, the saint also, I mean, gave some good compliments for its graceful movement, for its not being disbalancing while landing and taking off its, off lighting its feet. But next, what he said is that to that creature, that if you want to be more graceful in your movements, then make sure from tomorrow onward you do it consciously. Now, what does it mean by consciously here is that the creature needs to calculate each of its step
Steps,
and
concrete
its
steps. Yeah.
legs and recording its flighting and landing at the same time. So this scent is causing him this deep, conscious, uh, work or exercise, right? Based on
Mhm.
consciousness.
Yeah.
Now, after 5 or 6 days, this creature almost strapped with this kind of conscious thought process, because then it was not able to even move an inch
Yeah.
because he was so much trapped into this
Because it
conscious
was very natural
act.
to him to be able to
Yes,
walk, with 48 steps or
there.
legs. Yes.
So therefore, this is what I wanted to say here is that too much of consciousness in your act, especially while you are performing,
Hmm.
only spoils your entire act and leaves you with nothing. And that what this story gives us as a moral
Hmm.
uh, part of this story.
Hmm.
So this is what I want to say.
So instead of being overconscious, we should be conscious but not overconscious, because overconscious consciousness sometimes going to meddle with your
Right,
decisions, and it's going to meddle with your actions,
right,
interfere with your actions, and it'll hamper your progress, and then you will not be able to get where you think you will be, right?
right.
So this is all about the conversation. And I think if people start putting all these insights into practice, if they
Mhm.
start living the life the way we have discussed, I think they will see some remarkable changes in their lives. So we should, instead of following certain other psychologies, we should be going back to our natural psychology. This is going to keep us very blessed out, and we will be we'll be doing justice to our talent as well, and we will be reaching where we are supposed to reach,
Right.
and we will not have any regrets in our life, because we have started living our life to the fullest. And one more thing I would love to say is that psychology is not as tough for people to
True.
grasp as they think it is. Because now see how simplest, in what simplest ways the Trivedi has explained this, right? It
Right,
is that's why in the beginning I said that it is the masterpiece, I would say.
right,
I've read so many books, and I found that this is really going to help people live the kind of life they have imagined for themselves, right?
right.
So with this, I'm gonna wrap it up. And I would love to say this to the audience, that if they've start putting everything into practice, I think they'll see some remarkable changes in their lives, and they will find that yes, they have started living the life of their dreams. So with this, I'm gonna wrap it up, and I'll be seeing you in the next video with some exciting conversation. Till then, take care.